Joe Rogan hints China's moon discovery could change everything. But what did they find?
And China has made history, successfully landing on the unexplored far side of the moon.
Since forever, the moon was humanity's silent companion, its secrets locked away in dusty craters and shadowed plains. But now, China's groundbreaking lunar missions have cracked open a vault of astonishing discoveries that could forever alter our understanding of Earth's celestial neighbor. Joe Rogan, known for cutting through the noise, says these findings don't just add to our knowledge, they change everything. What exactly did China uncover on the moon? The truth is more electrifying than anyone expected. Rogan has a knack for sensing when something big is happening, something that isn't just news, but a signal that the world is about to shift. And when he started talking about China's moon missions on his podcast, it wasn't with the usual conspiracy theories or sci-fi hype. It was with awe, genuine, wide-eyed awe. Because here's the thing, when you strip away all the politics, all the flags, and all the drama, what's left is the raw, unfiltered truth. China went to the moon, found things we didn't expect, and changed what we thought we knew. That's the kind of stuff Joe lives for. In an episode where the moon came up, Joe made it clear, this isn't just a science story. It's a we are entering a new era of humanity story. We're talking about humans moving beyond Earth, not just sending rovers, but building bases, mining resources, and living off-world. It's no longer a question of if, but when. And China just sped up the timeline. A new power rises. When we think about moon landings, the first, and sometimes only thing that comes to mind, is Neil Armstrong's iconic step back in 1969. The US flag planted in the lunar soil, grainy black and white footage, and the Cold War-fueled race between the US and the Soviet Union. That era burned itself into the collective human story. But here's what you may not know. While much of the world has turned its attention to Mars and commercial space travel, China has been quietly, methodically building a lunar program that is not just impressive, it's history-making. And now they've pulled off some of the most advanced and daring moon missions ever attempted. Let's rewind to 2013. China launched Chang'e 3, named after the Chinese moon goddess, a poetic nod to ancient mythology guiding cutting-edge science. The mission landed a rover called Yutu, Jade Rabbit, on the moon's near side. It was the first soft landing on the moon in 37 years. No explosions, no crash landings, just a smooth descent, followed by a rover rolling across the dusty plains. It was a clear signal. China had entered the arena, but they weren't stopping there. Fast forward to January 3rd, 2019. This is the moment that truly stunned space agencies around the world. Chang'e 4 touched down on the far side of the moon, something no country had ever done before. Why is that a big deal? Because the far side of the moon is essentially radio silent. You can't just call a rover and say, "Hey, how's it going?" The Earth can't communicate directly with it. To make this possible, China had already launched a relay satellite called Queqiao, which parked itself in a special position beyond the moon to bounce signals back and forth. This wasn't just an achievement, it was a statement. Technically, politically, scientifically, China had just taken the lead in a new chapter of lunar exploration. And then came Chang'e 5 in December 2020. This one raised the bar yet again. It wasn't just about landing. This mission drilled down into the lunar surface, scooped up rock and soil samples, launched itself back into orbit, and returned those samples to Earth, all autonomously. That hadn't been done since the Soviet lunar missions in the 70s. Nearly 2 kilograms of pristine lunar material arrived on Earth, fresher and geologically younger than anything ever retrieved before. Let that sink in. While the rest of the world was distracted by terrestrial concerns, China quietly pulled off one of the most sophisticated robotic space missions ever attempted, and they brought back pieces of the moon. But here's the real question. What did they actually find up there that's making scientists, and even guys like Joe Rogan, sit up and pay attention? The moon is not what we thought. When China's Chang'e 5 spacecraft parachuted back to Earth in December 2020, it wasn't just carrying rocks and dust, it was carrying answers. Real ones, tangible, measurable data, not speculation, not guesswork. These were the first lunar samples returned to Earth in over 4 decades, and they came from a region no one had ever sampled before, Mons Rumker, a volcanic formation in the Moon's Oceanus Procellarum region. That location alone was a clue that something different was coming. The first surprise: age. Scientists expected Moon rocks to be ancient, over 3 billion years old, like those from the Apollo missions. But the samples from Chang'e 5 turned out to be only 1.96 billion years old. That's still incredibly old. But by lunar standards, it's practically youthful. What this revealed is that volcanic activity on the Moon lasted far longer than we thought. Until now, the prevailing belief was that the Moon had cooled and become geologically dead much earlier. China's samples proved otherwise. The Moon, it turns out, had an internal heat source for much longer, which means there's a missing chapter in its story that scientists are now racing to understand. Then came the mineral analysis. Among the crushed rock and dust, researchers identified a new lunar mineral, later named changesite. Why? It's a phosphate mineral embedded within basalt particles, and while it's microscopic, its presence is massive in terms of scientific value. Not only does it help us understand lunar geology better, it may even point toward helium-3 potential, an isotope that some scientists believe could be used for nuclear fusion in the future. And yes, the question of water, the holy grail of space exploration, wasn't ignored. Instruments on the Chinese orbiter that accompanied Chang'e 5 detected signatures of water molecules on the Moon's surface. More precisely, they found evidence of hydroxyl, a molecule closely related to water, embedded in minerals. While NASA had previously found similar evidence, China's confirmation added weight to the idea that the Moon isn't a bone-dry desert after all. This matters because water could one day support human life on the Moon or be split into hydrogen and oxygen for fuel. There were even microscopic glass beads in the samples, formed by ancient lunar eruptions, tiny time capsules that trap traces of gases from billions of years ago. Studying these is like opening a window into the Moon's volcanic past. Every one of these findings, confirmed, peer-reviewed, and public, is reshaping the way we understand our closest celestial neighbor. This isn't science fiction. This is real, verifiable, and world-shifting. So, with China making such groundbreaking moves on the Moon, the next big question is, how does their lunar strategy stack up against the rest of the world? Are we witnessing a new kind of space race, or something entirely different? China versus the world. Here's the truth. The space race never really ended, it just changed shape. And now it's heating up again, but this time, it's not just about planting a flag, it's about staking a claim to the Moon's real estate, resources, and future. China's lunar program is impressive, not just because of what it's achieved, but how fast it's accelerating. In under 2 decades, China has gone from its first lander to full sample return missions, with plans for a permanent international lunar research station by the mid-2030s. What's more, they've invited other nations, like Russia, Venezuela, Pakistan, and several African countries, to join this ambitious project, framing it as a global alternative to NASA's initiatives. Meanwhile, the United States is running its own ambitious program, Artemis. Led by NASA with international partners such as the European Space Agency, Japan, and Canada, Artemis aims to put astronauts back on the Moon, focusing on the lunar South Pole, where water ice is believed to exist. The US also established the Artemis Accords, a framework for peaceful exploration and resource use, which over 30 countries have now signed. While both China and the US want to explore, build bases, and mine resources, their approaches differ fundamentally. China is building a long-term, state-led presence with an emphasis on infrastructure for mining, science, and potentially defense. Their missions proceed quietly and efficiently, with a clear roadmap. In contrast, the US leans heavily on private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin to carry out parts of the Artemis program, creating a hybrid model that mixes public leadership with commercial execution. This approach is faster and more flexible, but comes with its own risks. Beyond these two, other nations are staking their claims. India recently landed a probe near the Moon's South Pole with Chandrayaan-3. Japan is preparing a rover mission with Toyota. South Korea launched its own lunar orbiter. and Europe is contributing hardware and scientific modules to Artemis. Everyone wants in on this new frontier, but the moon's resources are finite. There's only so much water ice, prime locations for solar power, and mineral-rich areas to go around. While the 1967 Outer Space Treaty prohibits any nation from claiming ownership of the moon, it leaves many questions about how resources can be used and shared unanswered. This emerging situation has created a tense atmosphere, with two parallel space blocks taking shape, one led by the US and its partners, the other by China and its allies. Their rules, partnerships, and goals differ significantly. Cooperation is still possible, but the window is closing fast. Whoever builds first and establishes a foothold will have the power to shape the future of lunar exploration and beyond. The real question is no longer who will go to the moon, but who will get there fast enough to determine what that future looks like. How China's findings shift our understanding of the moon. For decades, the moon has mostly been treated like a relic, a cosmic museum piece. We thought we had it figured out. It was formed from a giant impact, quickly cooled, became geologically dead, and has been quietly orbiting us ever since. But China's findings throw a wrench into that tidy narrative. They suggest the moon's story is not over. In fact, it's far more alive, complex, and important than we ever gave it credit for. Start with the volcanic activity. Before the Chang'e 5 mission, the scientific consensus was that lunar volcanoes went extinct around 3 billion years ago. That's a long time, long enough for us to stop asking if the moon had any internal heat left. But now, with solid proof that lava flowed across the surface 1.96 billion years ago, scientists are forced to re-examine the moon's entire thermal history. Why did volcanic activity last longer in some areas? What was powering it? These aren't small questions. They could completely reshape our models of how not just the moon, but rocky planets and moons across the solar system evolve. Then there's the mineral composition. By finding entirely new minerals and confirming the presence of rare isotopes, China's mission has introduced data that Apollo and lunar missions simply didn't touch. This opens up a broader, more diverse understanding of what the moon is made of and where it might be hiding useful materials. Minerals like changesite, Dewey, offer insight into the chemical conditions under which the moon formed and evolved. And the helium-3 connection, that's not a sci-fi fantasy. It's a scientifically discussed potential energy source. While commercial fusion energy is still in development, helium-3 is rare on Earth and relatively more abundant on the moon. So yes, that tiny mineral could one day power human civilization, literally. But perhaps the most exciting discovery is the confirmation of water-related molecules. If future missions can locate and extract usable water from lunar soil, it changes everything about deep space travel. No longer would we need to carry all our water and fuel from Earth. Instead, the moon could become a fueling station, a launch pad, or even a base camp for missions to Mars and beyond. Water is heavy, expensive to launch, and essential for life. If it's already out there, waiting to be unlocked, then the moon transforms from a destination into a doorway. These are paradigm-shifting revelations. They challenge the foundations of what we thought we knew, and they open new doors for the future of space travel, science, and even survival. The moon isn't a dead rock in the sky anymore. It's alive, with data, with history, and with opportunity. How China pulled this off. Pulling off a moon mission is never just about rockets. It's about precision, timing, communication, and innovation, layer upon layer of engineering mastery. And China didn't just meet expectations with their Chang'e missions, they rewrote the manual on what modern space exploration looks like. Let's talk about the Chang'e 4 mission, the one that landed on the far side of the moon. This had never been done before, and for good reason. The far side of the moon is radio silent. It faces away from Earth at all times, making direct communication impossible. So, what did China do? They launched a relay satellite called Queqiao into a special orbit beyond the moon, a halo orbit around a Lagrange point, where it could act like a cosmic Wi-Fi router, bouncing signals between mission control and the lander. It was smart, elegant, and worked flawlessly. Then came Chang'e 5. This mission took things to a level we hadn't seen since the 70s. It wasn't just about landing and exploring. This was a full sample return mission, entirely robotic. The lander drilled into the lunar surface, scooped up samples, and loaded them into an ascent vehicle. That tiny rocket blasted off from the moon, docked with an orbiter circling above, transferred the sample canister, and then sent it hurtling back to Earth, where it re-entered the atmosphere and parachuted down safely in Inner Mongolia. Think about that for a second. That's like sending a robotic arm to another country, having it collect a soil sample, launch it back, dock mid-air with a drone, and then drop it into your backyard, all without a single human pilot. It's engineering on a whole new level. China also equipped these missions with some of the most advanced scientific instruments ever sent to the moon. From ground-penetrating radar to spectrometers and soil analyzers, their landers and rovers weren't just there for a photo op, they were doing hard science every step of the way. This kind of technological sophistication matters. It shows that China is not just catching up, they're innovating, pushing boundaries and setting the bar for what's possible in space. Every successful maneuver, every precisely timed sequence adds confidence for what comes next. Longer missions, deeper exploration, and maybe even human footprints on lunar soil in the near future. All this begs an even bigger question. Why is China doing all this? And what does it mean for the rest of the world? The new space race is on. Space has never been just about science. It's about power, presence, and the future of civilization itself. And right now, China is making it very clear. They don't just want a seat at the table, they want to build the table. Let's talk science first. The data from China's moon missions isn't locked away behind closed doors. They've released findings publicly, allowing researchers around the world to analyze the samples and confirm results. That kind of transparency has earned China growing respect in the global scientific community. Their discoveries about younger volcanic rock, new minerals, and water molecules are already being cited by NASA scientists and universities worldwide. But make no mistake, there's a geopolitical edge to this too. The moon isn't just a giant rock floating in space anymore. It's the high ground. Whoever controls access to the moon potentially controls the next phase of human expansion, whether it's building lunar bases, mining rare resources like helium-3, or using it as a launchpad for missions deeper into the solar system. Right now, multiple countries are racing to plant deeper roots. The US has its Artemis program, aiming to return astronauts to the moon by the late 2020s. But China, they've already announced plans to build a permanent lunar research station in partnership with Russia, with human landings targeted as early as 2030. It's no longer about flags and footprints. It's about infrastructure, and here's where the game really changes. Lunar resources. Water is the key. If you can extract water, you can split it into hydrogen and oxygen, fuel and air. That's the first step towards self-sustaining bases. Combine that with 3D printing, AI, and robotic construction, and we're suddenly talking about moon bases that aren't just theoretical, they're inevitable. China's missions are positioning them as leaders in that future. They're not just collecting samples, they're laying the foundation for something much bigger. This isn't just about science, it's about strategy, influence, and the ability to shape humanity's next frontier. And let's not forget the ripple effects here on Earth. Every space program fuels innovation, robotics, communications, clean energy, materials science, you name it. What's being built for the moon may transform industries on Earth in ways we haven't even seen yet. So, yes, this is a race, but unlike the Cold War-era space race, this one isn't about beating a rival to the finish line. It's about who gets to define what comes next in human space exploration. This isn't just about exploration anymore. It's about direction. The nations that reach the moon and learn how to live and work there will shape the future, not just of space science, but of energy, industry, and survival beyond Earth. China is making bold moves. The US is answering back. Other nations are racing to join the conversation. The moon is no longer no man's land. It's the next global stage. Do you think China will definitely dominate lunar exploration? Comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more.